Maybe just a refresher for CCNs, since it's the neighborhood presidents, and then that way they're all hearing the same information.
Columbia Council neighborhood zero. That'd be great.
They're meeting Thursday.
Maybe not Thursday. That's okay.
I just
Rarity.
you mentioned it.
I
just remember.
No, they need monthly, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Maybe next
Get
month.
on their schedule.
They've already got a good speaker for Thursday.
I will see.
Okay, our next item is road ownership and maintenance. Mr. Robert Anderson, our public works director. Just by way of recall from the last council meeting, Mr. Rickman was thinking we would move this discussion to committee. I think upon further discussion, council decided let's just have a work session. The original inquiry, Mr. Rickman, of course, has been following closely Kilburn. That situation with SCDOT and some lack of traffic calming measures. I would just say as we begin this discussion that I did ask Robert to give a more comprehensive discussion of where we are. Reminding council that over the years we've also wanted to maintain paving for city roads. You've also mentioned the need for sidewalks. So just want to have a balanced discussion as you talk about taking on more roads. Not saying we shouldn't in some cases. There are city needs that I always have to remind us of as well.
Thank you. I guess as Elle started out, we'll talk about one of our favorite subjects. And Robert Sweat and David Brewer are both here. But Robert Sweat would say that you might not have parking on the side of the road if we don't have pavement setting on the side of the road also. So as we go through the presentation today, I want to talk a little bit about ownership, and I'm going to talk a little bit about maintenance, and I'm going to talk a little bit about opportunities that we've done as a city. So about 69% of the roads within the city are owned and maintained by SCDOT. If you recall, right now SCDOT has some gas taxes that are increasing every year, will be increasing for the next few years, so it gives them an opportunity to pave these roads. About 30% of the roads in the city are owned by the city, and about 1% we think are private. Now private roads are a lot of gated communities have private roads. There's 400 lane miles of city streets within the city. When we talk lane miles, we're talking either 2-lane or 3-lane or maybe even some single-lane roads that are one way. With every piece of road ownership, we also have other things we have to maintain. We maintain the sidewalk, we maintain the storm drainage system, we maintain the signs on the road, and in various situations, we also maintain the signalization of the intersections. So the next slide actually represents, and it's really difficult to see, but it gives you the idea of the road ownership that we have. And it's such a large area, but if you'll look at your maps that you have in your packet, you'll find the blue ownership is the City of Columbia roads, the red ownership is DOT, and then you'll see some green roads that you can barely make out with our map. If you look, you can tell that the center core of the city has the majority of the roads that belong to the city. It seems like as the city expanded, SCDOT actually expanded and kept the road network. There's a lot of roads, as you'll find out here in a few minutes, that actually have some connectivity issues, and that is that Hampton Street is a great example. We own all of Hampton Street except for one block. And DOT owns one block of Hampton Street. How that ever happened, we don't know, but we've worked through some issues to go through them. So the one thing we've done is, years ago, 2011, I believe, we went through a pavement management. We brought to you what is pavement management. And pavement management is planning for pavement maintenance and rehabilitation with the goal of maximizing the value and life of a pavement network. So we brought a program called Micropaver, which interfaced with our city works. And in 2011, we actually inspected all the city streets. Unlike lane miles, we inspected 180 miles of city roads, which means we took them in increments. It didn't take them in mile increments. Sometimes we broke that mile down into 2 or 3 block areas. Remember that 30% of the roads in the city are maintained and owned by the City of Columbia. The other thing that we've recently taken on is we haven't done this evaluation in a while. So we want to bring our information back up to field data standards. So we're in the process of re-looking at a new micropaver system and actually going out and evaluating the roads. City staff evaluated the roads for this project. So back in 2011, our road rating was 80, which is satisfactory. We'll get that to a minute. And our current conditions of our road in 2019 is 67, which is fair. So what our system does is it uses a sliding scale, and it projects. If we pave a road, we go in and say we've paved a road, and it brings the road back up to 100. Then it starts using a life cycle of road and bringing that back down. So the micropaver process has actually been working, and we see that we've decreased our structural integrity of our roads, but we want to go back out and take a field look at our roads. So pavement conditions, to let you know where we are. 0 to 10 is a failure, 11 to 25 is serious, 26 to 40 is poor, 41 to 55 is poor, very poor, poor, 56 to 70 is fair, 71 to 85 is satisfactory, 86 to 100 is good. So this is Dora Street. Years ago, we actually redid Dora Street with some CDBG money. Dora Street no longer looks like this. Do what?
Door of North Main?
Oh, North Main. Yes. So Dora Street no longer looks like this. Dora Street was repaved with CDBG money. We actually did a soil cement. It was a completely failed road, which is what the picture shows here. The next street shows the 11 to 25 categories. And what it does is it shows the multiple utility cuts, it shows depressions and base failures, it shows severe alligator cracking, and you can't really tell it, but it shows where the road is swelling up, where depressions have occurred. The next category is very poor, which is showing potholes, it shows multiple pothole patchwork, it shows severe alligator cracking, severe block cracking, and it's starting to show some weathering. So the next one is poor, and somehow these continue to get out of order, but it shows weathering, severe blocking, medium alligator cracking. The next one is fair, and fair is showing some utility cuts, they're showing some linear cracking, and they're also showing low alligator cracking. The next one is satisfactory. That's where we was a few years ago, which just is showing some early signs of cracking. And the last one is showing a good road. So the good roads, of course, are the ones that we've just put some money into, either rebuilt or repaved, and I will show you how we've done and accomplished some of that in a little bit. So,
Real quick. So 69% of DOT own roads. They also, this also represents who maintains these roads, so do we maintain their roads as well? 6931, is that?
right, 69, yeah, 6930, they do their own maintenance and their own paving.
So 2/3 of every phone call about a road condition should go to the governor's office, not to the office.
I just received a text from somebody that said there's a pothole on the road, and we sent that pothole to the
Was it
DOT.
on Lawrence Street?
That was on Lawrence Street.
That came from me, right?
It did. So we've already addressed that and sent it to DOT.
One
Rob-
question, follow up.
okay.
Go ahead.
Well, go ahead, Sam.
The standards. Are we operating according to DOT standards or federal standards in terms of maintenance and quality?
So I think our maintenance and quality would be to a state standard, which I believe is to a federal standard. You know, there's certain preventive measures that you can put into roads. The problem with roads when they start cracking and they start getting moisture under them, I think Robert Sweat would shake his head. Once they start getting moisture under them, that's the problem. We have asphalt issues after the asphalt starts cracking and the base failures happen. Correct, Robert?
So it is federal.
So, Robert, the rating now, the city's pavement condition, are you including state-owned roads that are located in the city in our thing, or just the city-owned roads?
These are just the city-owned roads.
Do we have any idea of the state-owned roads that are in the city and their condition?
I do not. We do meet with DOT once a month. I do believe we could possibly get that information.
Would you like to ride around, Mr. Devine?
Yeah.
Well, I know what those, yeah, I know what I think they are, and that was just the question, just similar to, the mayor sending you the text. I mean, we get a lot of complaints about roads that are state-owned roads, but as we are, I guess, to further my thought process is, as we're talking about taking over roads, are we looking at the roads that are owned by them and supposed to be maintained by them, but are not being maintained, that cause us extra heartache? I mean, is that part of the analysis to figure out which ones should we be trying to take over and not?
We maintain a pretty robust list of roads that we'd rather have, and obviously that constant cleaning that goes on. But I'm not sure there's any easy way other than telling them. I give everyone just Robert's cell phone number real quick. Mike on nearby, and he can tell you really quickly.
We can try to get that. DOT actually, they rate the roads a little bit differently than we do. They actually have a motorized vehicle that goes out and tests bumps and everything else on roads and takes video of them, and then they put them in a quality index, and they do it for the state. So I know that they have that because we've just got a list of roads I believe that they're going to pave in Richland County. I think that was part of the gas tax funding, was to try to increase the paving. So
Richland County or City of Columbia, or that's all go together?
that would be
That's
state.
statewide.
Right.
State.
So, okay. So I guess to follow up to that question, is there any way that you can get us a repayment schedule from DOT that affects our neighborhoods and the city?
We can do our best on that. Okay, we'll talk about our monthly meeting and see if we can get that.
And then one more request, and since we interrupted you, is there any way you can separate that map with all the city streets and DOT streets in different districts?
Yes.
So we can see it.
Yes. So opportunities that we've taken on over the past, we always look at our general fund. We always try to use leveraging funds in our general fund. So if we do get money to pave roads, we always look at how we can leverage these fundings. We do that with the look of outside funding sources. The greatest one we go to is CTC. CTC is the County Transportation Committee, and what we do is we go to them with roads, and we say, what can we work with here? So Robert and his group have done a great job using CTC funds over the years. We did about $3 million worth of paving a few years ago. Currently, we're working on a subdivision, which is Chestnut Hills, on a road failure project, which was...
Where do you live again?
I'm not sure, sorry. I live out towards Harvest somewhere.
It's gonna be a 96% road.
It's 100 right now, so some of the side roads are not that good. So if anybody remembers the headaches that we went through last year, we decided in November of last year to open up Lost Creek Drive to do a full depth reclamation, and then it proceeded to have the wettest month on record of December. And unfortunately, I do live in Chestnut Hills, and I heard a lot about orange cars and what are you going to do with the roads, and it's like, this is the process. But staff did a great job of taking $500,000 worth of general fund money, going to the CTC, and returning back with $2.5 million worth of money. So we've got $3 million to spend in a subdivision that has failing roads. The other one we've used a lot is the CDBG funding. As you know, this CDBG funding is limited to some areas, but anytime we get an opportunity for CDBG funding, we will try to do that. The others is public-private partnership. I know that's public-private. Sometimes we do public-public. We did one with Richland County last year to take roads and leverage money that other people have used to try to make a better driving surfaces for people.
Robert, who's our appointee on CTC? Does the city have an appointment on CTC?
I don't think so, no.
It's delegation. I served years ago. It's delegation.
It's not, they're not municipal appointments.
Robert Sweat and his group has a great working relationship with CTC. So something that came back last year was the SCDOT Turnback Program. So this came out last year. The DOT commissioners approved a voluntary road transfer program. So both SCDOT and municipalities must agree on the transfer. They developed this on a 40-year life cycle cost. So what they were willing to do is give the cities or municipalities within the state 40 years worth of funding to take over some of their roads to maintain forever. So $10 million was awarded for the state for the first year, is what our understanding was. They've had overwhelming responses for this, and I believe they're still going through these. I'll show you the list of the roads we put in for and some of the roads we took out and put somewhere else. The turnback questions that we had, Dan Higgins actually sent these over to DOT, we never got an answer yet, is if we take over the road, are we taking over the sidewalks? Are we taking over the storm drain? Are we taking over your easements? And are we taking over your signalization system also, which we do have a contract with DOT now for their signalization. So a lot of people are going to know where these streets are, some will not. So these are some of the roads we put into the turnback program. Galliard Street, which we found out yesterday is a street in Lexington County. It's really not a street in Lexington County. It's a street in Richland County. It's right over here in Cottontown, but it's also called Cottontown Way. We want that one block of Hampton Street, so we control that. We've got a one block of Park Street. We've got Arlington, Grant, a little bit of Reed Street, Pavilion down in 5 Points, and College Street. If there were additional round of turnback monies to become available, maybe council would wish that staff bring to them with their recommendations of if and why we take these. The next is the funding for the turnback program. This is why it's very difficult to say that we don't know what we would get. Is we would have to, if elected, we would go back to DOT and say, okay, what are the conditions of these streets? And I'm sure it's going to be based on their quality ratings. So it's going to be really good, fair, poor. So then we would have to work out lane miles, and the funding would come back to the city for the 40-year. You know, if we got this funding, staff would love to see it put into our pavement management program, where we can try to learn how to use that leverage back with CTC and how we can get more miles for our buck out of paving. The next thing is the project that's long coming, and that is the North Main property swap. I know this is very difficult for a lot of people to understand, but it's the old 277 corridor is what I've been told. It's really a piece of property between Park Street and comes clear back around to Prisma Health. As you'll notice, there's a large piece of property. Missy Gentry's been kind of spearheading this project for, I can't tell you how long, Missy, 3 years, 4 years, 10 years? So we got an email.
It's tired of my early morning text on.
we got an email the other day from DOT that said, they're kind of in agreement, and they're kind of in agreement with our costing. Now it's just to put the final steps into place, I believe. So we did a road swap on this. So we took our roads out of our turnback program and put them into this program and said, let's use the turnback money and say this is what the funding for these roads would be. So those roads are Honors Drive, which not a lot of people knows where Honors Drives are. Honors Drive is, but it's our landfill road where we built our gun range for our police department. It is in a failing road condition, especially after we built the gun range, so it's worth quite a bit of money. Croson Road, which is newly repaved, it has some interest. Gray Street, Washington Street, Henderson Street, Chester Street, Wayne Street, and Aiken. Some of the bottom streets, DOT actually contacted us and say, these just make good sense for you to take. You know, they're not in bad shape, but they're kind of in an area of, you know, you own a block and we own 4 blocks or vice versa. So these are the streets that would be the proposed roads to be accepted. In lieu of accepting the 40 years, we would actually assume the property on North Main.
What's the plan for the property?
So the North Main property, and I'm going to give a shot of this.
There's lots of potential there.
Several suggestions.
Yeah.
Nothing there.
The only thing I do know is we've carved off some area for a greenway that is not part, if we never use it to sell, we don't have any issues with using it for public property, so there is no cost. So we did carve off the spot for the greenway, and there's some wetlands down there that will never be used, so that is just part of a give at no cost.
And if I could add to Councilmember Rickman's point, because of the way DOT got the property, it has to continue to be public, and so and so where it is located in a redevelopment area, it just makes sense that if we had ownership, we could look at some of the ideas that we've had, and it would be able to be more useful than it is at this point.
All that color.
Right, yeah.
All the colored areas, the blue, the red, and the green.
Yes. It would go from Park Street clear down to the Prisma Health.
All the way down to what road?
Prisma, or Palmetto Ridge from Prisma Health.
So, my district or some of the neighborhoods in my district, as many of others, have come and requested some maintenance to their roads, and same answer is it's got to be a DOT or city we can do. So, taking that request from a neighborhood to fix some street, how long does it take if it's a DOT road for DOT or us to maintain or pave or fix that road?
I guess I'll answer your question with maybe a comment of how we like to look at our roads. And we look at our roads through the pavement management index or whatever, and what do they index out as. And we want to make sure that we are paving roads that are in need of paving or need rebuilt, so we have great riding surfaces. I do believe that, there's some of the citizens in my area that says, hey, this road really needs to be repaved. When you look at it on a condition index, it's not, maybe a 67, but you have 3 that's a 30 that you should repair before that.
And I guess every road in every district or every neighborhood is different. I mean, the most common complaints I hear is Rosewood, and I've walked and drove to Rosewood. They're in bad shape. I mean, some of the streets are just nothing but gravel. That I'll be glad to give you a list, and maybe you can help us out or help figure out maybe there's a schedule to either fix them or repave them or whatever. I think that's why I requested maybe if there's a repavement program or some of these roads to know about, so we can share that with the residents.
Understood. Yeah, if you give me a list, what we'll do is if their DOT will elevate them to them and see where they are. They actually have a 5-year paving plan that's already designed, is my understanding.
We'll love to hear.
But, Robert, let me ask this question. Once a project starts, is there any indication when they're going to get through? And the reason I ask that is that there's a project over in the Highland Forest area. I think we visited that they started, but did not complete, or it's in completion. Highland Forest, DOT came out, it was determined that it was a DOT road. They started it didn't complete itself during the summer, of course, and I think that there has been some subsequent repairs, but not completed yet. That's in the Highland Forest area.
Where's Highland Forest? I'm sorry.
Off of,
Between Farrell and
yeah.
Two Nuts.
Oh, I will look. I'll check on it. So,
Sure.
Off of Cushman.
Push.
Off of Cushman, Highland Park. I said, what did I say? Highland Forest.
Okay,
Highland
thank you.
Park. I'm sorry.
yes, I'll check with Highland Park, see what the issue is.
Please.
Sidebar, two questions. One is, can we get a list of what DOT is working on currently or planning so that we can see? Because, so on my street, which I find interesting, is that 4 months ago, they came and installed the start construction and end construction signs on a half a block area. And 2 of the signs are facing a dead-end corner where somebody comes out of their driveway. And no work's been completed, but 4 people have signs in their yards for construction. Nothing's happened. I don't know why. And then the second is understanding how the coordination goes on a DOT route with our utilities. Because like Chicor and all these other streets are continuing to sink in the middle. And we call this and that, and somewhere we're getting lost in between. I guess, how does that work? Does that become our expense and we need to go ahead and fix that, or is that a DOT problem?
I could address it, but I think Clint will.
I'll try. So any utility cut that we have made, it is our responsibility to repair that, and if it fails, to go back and repair that. We are in the process of circulating that list, of that planned paving list within the city, within our own internal departments, so we can try to go ahead, if there's any work planned, get that work done
before the pavement happens so that we're not cutting a newly paved road. Nothing makes citizens more angry than cutting a newly
Well,
paved
it's
road.
been
So.
paved 3 times, but we can't get these other streets paved, and part of it's been for all the stormwater and issues, and the contractor didn't pave it right the first time, and I mean, the list goes on, but, you know, I think figuring out how to address, because we're having a lot of sinking issues. And I don't know if that stems from the construction of the road, or if that's just we've got leaks, and I know we've had, I want to say Maztec, but that's not right. One of those companies out there scoping everywhere around and just trying to figure out how that affects the lift, because it's becoming a hazard.
Well, and it could be a variety of issues that are causing the failure. It could be a utility and not properly patched back. It could be a failing utility underneath the road that's eroding the base away. Or it could be just improperly constructed roads. So we have to look each one case by case. But I can say this, because of Robert and Dana and their efforts, we're doing a much better job coordinating with DOT, meeting with them every month. And when we get those specifics, we talk through each of those and try to get a resolution as we move forward. So bring those to us and we'll do our best to process.
I think it'd be great if somehow we could get a list of those streets that y'all are having conversations about, so we can pass that, because it seems the last few months has been phone call after phone call.
Yes, sir.
Dealing with the streets. And
We can get that list. Yes, sir. Thank you.
One thing that Robert mentioned at the top of his presentation that I think all of us need to understand is when he said that DOT now has the capacity, the growing capacity because of the sales tax on gas that'll be coming up over the next 2 or 3 years, more money to maintain these roads better. And even if we want some of these roads, it might not be in our best interest to take some of these roads because of the continued. And the other thing was the long list of things. It's not just the pavement, it's the sidewalk, it's the storm drain, it's the signalization, everything. So we need to
there's some streets we want to control that.
well, some of them might be, but we need to weigh that carefully, because they're gonna have those resources, and this is gonna come out of our general fund, mostly of it.
Yeah, we've all been trying to figure out where those resources are, because they've been collecting it for a long time now. There's a lot of money, and I hadn't seen a whole lot of it.
There's a whole lot of going on, but it takes time, just like our storm drain, our storm maintenance thing. We have a $92 million bond on the storm drain, and we're just now gearing up so those projects are hitting the road.
The difference is DOT roads have been known for a long time. They suddenly didn't come up bubbling up and say, oh no, this is.
Yeah, but it takes time to get the permitting and all the other stuff, the engineering done on repaving these roads.
Well, let me let's do a couple more questions.
Who's running the city council? It must be
Following up on
DOT
Howard's question, DOT, well, they're positioned to get almost what they may need for a short period of time to the tax. Robert, what do we really qualify for directly from the feds as a municipality for road dollars? Anything or none?
Done.
Nothing. So,
That's why we ought to lower the drinking age to 18.
I second that motion.
Say that again? What are your motions?
All right, AG.
Yeah, we can't use CDBG dollars, but
Well, beyond that, that's all, that's all.
Research.
Nothing from,
We have to apply to do something that way.
nothing from the national.
It was.
So that, but that then,
Robert,
that then would put, a bit more strain on us if we, based on what we take in the condition of the roads. How we plan to address any known needs down the road.
So, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Can we get another question?
one quick question, and maybe he probably doesn't have to answer, but it's something that we can talk about. Is there any way we can lobby DOT to give us a percentage or of some of the gas money that we're collecting to fix our DOT interstate, on the city
And I would not know the answer to that. I think that would be a legal question that I don't know where and how, they pass that tax through the State House. And I know it increases every year 2% or 2 cents on the dollar, but I don't know how they segregated it. I'm sure that money has to stay and be spent on DOT streets or the federal highway project. The one thing I would like to say is on Kilburn Road is, and I don't know where we want to go with this right now. I know there's some talk about Kilburn Road. Kilburn Road is going to be a major collector for the cars coming off of Fort Jackson Boulevard. And I think that's what the issue is now is, we put a lot of effort. I know the police department's put some effort into it. We put some speed signs up that, and I think there's an individual or 2 or 3 that still say that there's some speeding going on. The direction on Kilburn Road is council's direction, but I don't know that we'll ever cure the speeding on this. I know DOT's not going to allow speed humps because it is carrying that load of traffic every day.
Is that the major concern, was the speeding?
You got a lot of families moving through that area now. You got sidewalks, but people are flying. You got a 25 mile an hour to the bridge, and then from the bridge up it goes 30. And you can ride down there and you watch everybody go, and the sign says slow down, and they just keep going. Everything we've tried, we can't have traffic enforcement there every day. If we could get speed camera with a civil penalty on it put in there, that would solve the problem.
Is DOT open to any other traffic comment?
We've tried. They have nothing. There's not, even David, I think, even Brewer was at a new conference and was trying to see if there was anything, but no, we haven't been able to get anywhere with, not interested in the 3-way stop, which to me, y'all, the 3-way stops aren't helping us. People are flying through them. Robert and I rode on Deborah the other day looking at one. People were just flying through there. They look and they see nobody's there and they just go. So I worry about that has a false sense of security for those folks on Kilburn. But there is a lot of speeding. If you spend some time over there and just watch, we got to do something. But I just don't know if we can keep, we can't keep enforcement over there. I don't know what else we do other than try to take control of it.
Two seemingly mundane issues, but very effective and important presentations. So thank you.
So the alternative, Daniel, I'm sorry. So the alternative then was what? Is it speed humps? Is it a camera? What is it?
Maybe we look at creating some choke points,
That's what I was
pump
wondering.
out some other things. They're working in other places. We've got to do something. It's too much risk over there right now.
Can you do a roundabout?
Not enough room.
And your diversions take them through the neighborhoods, they don't like that.
Yes, sir. This is even more comprehensive than AMI, Mr. Mayor, so I'm glad that you all have made it to your 3:10 mark because settle in, because we're going to give this about an hour. Significant updates for you. Columbia Water and AMI update, Mr. Clint Shealy, Columbia Water and the team. So I know Dana, the chime in, Joey, Frank, maybe, I'll let you handle that, Clint.
We've got a team for you, a team presentation today, but thank you for your time. We wanted to take a little bit of time today to talk about some of the exciting things and new developments that are happening within Columbia Water, some of our progresses and kind of where we're headed. Primarily, we're going to talk about AMI and give you an update there. So you've got a booklet of material that our staff will go over with you and tell you exactly what's in that booklet, but that is geared to help you communicate with your constituents as questions come up. So that's tailored for you as council member. And we've also got some other good information to share. Our handouts have also been provided, or slides, so to take notes if you like. We'll talk about a stormwater program update, and then we'll talk about our Clean Water 2020 program. And I've asked a variety of staff that are closest to these programs to come brief us on that, and we'll have a time after each for questions and answers. So this is also a little bit of a primer about some of the information or projects that are on council agenda tonight, which you'll see. So I want to and have a chance to answer questions about that and share a little bit of information. Again, thank you for your time and your interest. I'm going to ask Jason Shaw, who is our project manager, is handling our AMI project, to come up and give us an overview of AMI, and then we'll kind of take it from there. And Robert Yanity, who's our communications manager, will talk about the information that you have in front of you. Jason? Thank you. Go ahead. So I brought some props today. This is our new AMI meter.
We've seen it in action.
We've seen it in action already. We do have about 2,500 installs to date. And this is an endpoint. This is the communication device that communicates remotely to the system. So this has a little cellular chip in it. So and it works on AT&T cellular network. So we're not putting up any radio antennas or anything like that. We're using existing cellular technology in AT&T's existing cellular network to communicate with these devices. This meter is very similar to the meter that we have today. It just has an encoding register, which means a digital register on it. But it has a mutating disk inside, and it measures the flow the same way that our current meters, our current analog meters, measure flow. And this is
How is it powered?
it has a lithium-ion battery here, and it has a smaller battery in the register. The register will hold about 45 days worth of data, 15-minute interval data. So if we don't get a communication remotely, we can interrogate this device at the property owner's site and get that data. If for some reason a car's parked over it or something like that, or AT&T's network is down for whatever reason. So I'm going to pass this around.
So if the battery is out, I guess it'll give you a signal that
Yes.
the base saying
So if
this is not reading.
Yeah, if that wire is cut between those two devices, we will get a tamper alert, and that will prompt us to have to go out and investigate what's going on. We already have that. So we have a tamper alert. If the register is removed from the meter, we get a tamper alert on that too, and stuff. So it's very state of the art. Yes, we think that we've had some issues.
We have a policy to address that.
There is some tamper language within the city's current ordinance, but we are reviewing that, and that's something that could be beefed up.
But right now, Jason, when you get that, go out and fix it.
Right now, we've been fixing it. But that meter is about $135, and that endpoint's about $75, so we've got about $200 in this thing. The old meters were about $35, something like that. So we got a lot more money out there than we did before in terms of just infrastructure.
So if there's an issue with the meter, is that work done or the repair is done on site or?
Yes.
It's done on site?
Yes, it can be done on site. It depends on what the damage is. It can be repaired. Those devices could possibly be repaired, or they could just be changed out with new devices.
And the data that, excuse me, the data that is collected is retainable for how many days?
45.
It's about 45 days worth of data that if we don't get a signal, it's retained locally at the endpoint. And it's 15-minute interval data.
This hour presentation is going to take 2 hours.
I wanted to go over our schedule today, our communications and public outreach plan that you've got copies of, that Robert helped us immensely with, and he's going to talk a little bit about that. Talk a little bit about our deployment plan and some key performance indicators that we're tracking. Wrong way.
So while you're trying to figure it out, so the number one complaint or feedback that I'm getting is none of the customers are getting door hangers that we're gonna turn off your water till we change this meter or that kind of thing. Nobody ever told me that there's a door hanger or a knock on the door or any notice at all.
Yeah, so we'll go through that in just a second when we go through the communications plan. But we have a residential letter and a commercial letter. Residential letters are going out about 2 weeks prior to install. I know a lot of those are probably ending up in the trash. People aren't reading them. But we do go knock on the door, the company does before the install. They also look at the meter to see if there's any registered usage going on. If there is registered usage going on, even if someone doesn't come to the door, they skip that and then come back to it later. So they're trying not to install a meter when someone's taking a shower or something like that. And then there's a door, about 20 minutes for residential. It depends on what they have to do. Some of them are a little bit more involved in that, but the average is probably 20 to 30 minutes or so. And then they are getting a door hanger saying that we were there and we successfully completed the install, and that there's no other action required by the customer. So back to our schedule, we had this project approved by council in February. We had our pre-construction conference on mid-March. We issued the NTP, and there's proceed very, very soon thereafter that. So we're on a 3-year total schedule. So we were working on this until March of 2022. The contractor has secured a local warehouse, and they're receiving inventory in May of this year. We spent a lot of time up front dealing with interfaces. We have to get this data into our billing system so we can send out a bill. It was a very complex process. We had numerous folks involved, folks from our IT department, and we also engaged Hanson, who owns the Banner billing system, and they helped us with this process and stuff as well. That was a lot of the pre-work that was going on in April and May. A lot of that was that, and we had many meetings about those issues and stuff. But that has been successful, and we've tested it, and we are able to get out bills with the new AMI system. We've also had some preliminary training, and really some more extensive training after that. We did some initial training in May, followed by some more in-depth training in June, and we had some recent training a few weeks ago. So our customer care staff can get into the new Beacon system, which is the utility portal that you can kind of see all this data in. They've been trained on that. They can look and see all the data that's in there to date. And our field staff has been trained on how to install these new meters. And they do have existing AMI inventory, and for small meters and new installs and stuff, they are installing AMI meters now as well. So we started our slow start in early June through the first couple of weeks of June. We're working on our Release 1 installations now, and we'll be working on our Release 2 installations starting in September through close to Christmas. And I've got some maps on that coming up in a second.
Approximately how many are in Release 1 and how many in Release 2?
Well, I have those numbers in just a second. The slow start was about 500. The Release 1 was about 12,000. Release 2 was about 14,000 meters. There's 150,000 metered accounts in the city. And we're touching every one of them. We're changing out about 98% of those. So this is the communication and outreach plan. Like I mentioned before, some of the things that are in your packets. I'll let Robert come up and kind of give a brief overview of what's in the packet.
Jason, may I ask one question before Robert comes? There has been, and of course, and I'm sure some of my colleagues have gotten emails referencing AMI and, and the sense of what I'm reading is that it causes things to happen. There's some pushback.
Yes, sir.
That's a part of it?
Yeah, we can table that for just a second, and we'll get to that at the end.
I mean, if you want to get it, come to it.
No, I can wait. Just, let's not leave it. Because I don't want to have anybody, excuse me, because the sense of the email was that it's the devil, somebody's buried something in the yard that represents the tools of the devil. And,
Well, you need to go over there and perform.
Trust me, even with a shovel. not gonna touch it. So if we can get to that, some
Yes,
talk
sir.
about that
Yes, sir.
that'd be fine.
We've had some recent issues with a few individual customers, and we'll be happy to address that.
Sure. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Robert Yanity, Communications Manager for Columbia Water. Just going to touch on this really quickly. You have a binder in front of you. Has a lot of our outreach activities that we're doing. It's not all encompassing, I will say that, but it does give you a lot of our touch points. We do have a committee that meets on a routine basis, so we're always touching base on what we can do better, other things we can do, those sorts of things. So it's an ongoing process. But in your binder, you'll see that we do have, one of the things we looked at was co-branding with our contractors, UMS, so that they can recognize folks out in the field. Everybody has the badges that you'll see in there. We have truck magnets that go inside the truck. So we want to make our customers, give them some assurances that these are folks that are out there from us and that nothing nefarious going on. We send out a letter 2 weeks ahead of time before we're coming to install. That's in your packet as well. And we also have door hangers in your packet. We have designed a website also, working with GIS. That folks can go and actually look up their address, type it in. If you're within the 6-month window, it'll tell you what week that you're scheduled to have it done. If you're not within that 6-month window, it'll just say check back later. And we're trying to get out there to promote that. It has been a slow rollout as far as our promotional stuff, getting our feet under us, but you're going to see a lot more of that. Start to get some successes with the program. We've also developed a mailing to go out to all neighborhood associations, homeowners associations. We got this from the Council of Neighborhoods. We sent the first half out earlier this year. We sent the second half out in September. We included flyers in there just for awareness that soon you'll be seeing us coming out to your neighborhoods. But if you want to post this flyer up in your, send it to your neighborhood group or whatever, it has some very basic information on that. And we're willing to come out in that letter. We offer our services to come out and talk. And if you hear your constituents, we know we don't reach everybody. We're trying to reach as many as we can. But if your constituents want us to come out, just contact Jason or myself. We're happy to arrange a time to come out and talk about AMI. And like I said, the packets have all that. We're doing our best. We're looking at, as we roll out further and further, you can see us on social media, listening to our customers and promoting what we're doing. So, but if you have any questions, feel free to let me know.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. So I think we went through most of these things here. So our deployment plan. So in developing a deployment plan, we are installing new meters in routes. And I can't tell you how many routes we've got. We've got hundreds and hundreds of routes. Those routes probably have about 200 to 300 meters within that route. And so we're trying to take that, and most neighborhoods, the Shannon neighborhood probably has a dozen or more routes within it. And we've worked in some of those areas recently, and I'll share that here in a second. That's why some people may have been worked in their neighborhoods and other people have not yet. So we took that concept of doing this by route, and we took some early routes that we wanted to tackle. One of them was the prison route. We wanted to really kind of throw these guys into the fire to begin with. There's over 200 meters on the prison route. And stuff, and so that was part of our slow start. We also did a neighborhood close to the water and wastewater maintenance facility as well as a test of this technology. So in the slow start, we did about 507 meters. That was a way for us to get some meters out in the field, go through the process, get a billing read, go through the whole billing process, get the bill out, and make sure all that process worked correctly. That was successful. We installed meters about over a 2-week or so period, and then we paused for a couple of weeks in late June and over July 4th holiday to allow those bills to go out to customers. Then the first full week in July, we started with Release 1, and Release 1 has about 12,000 meters, and Release 2, which they'll start working on at the end of September, beginning of October, that will run us through almost the end of the year, has about 14,000 meters. And these are all residential meters, so these are all 5/8 to 2-inch meters. We have not started a commercial deployment yet.
How are you prioritizing the residential areas?
Good question. So we took some initial, some of our initial routes and stuff was the prison route. We were estimating some bills there, so we wanted to get that taken care of. And then we picked a route. Our first route that we picked was around the wastewater maintenance facility, just because we wanted to keep a close eye on them, and our meter staff and stuff is in that area, and that way we could respond to them quickly and stuff if we needed to. And then from that, we just kind of built out from that. A route has a billing cycle of anywhere from 28 to 32 days. And there's about a 7 or 8 day period within that we call blackout, in which those are being read manually, and we don't want workers in those areas changing out meters while we're trying to read that route. So it's all based on that. So when we started our initial release 1, we kind of looked at what was just coming out of a blackout period to give them 21 or so days to get those upgraded before it went into blackout again, or the time to make a bill read to bill that customer for that month's usage. So that was a slow start, and then this is release 1. This is what we're currently working on. I believe they're up in the Irmo area and stuff this week. We're working in the Irmo area. We worked in Shandon. We've worked in Kings Grant. So far, we'll be working in the northeast area of town. This area just north of town is kind of this long, looks like a snake, is what our meter readers call a drag route, and they almost have to drive to each one of those. They're quarter mile, half mile between properties and stuff, and it takes them a long time to read that, and it's a real drain on their resources. So we're trying to take some of those things away from them as quickly as possible. That way they can concentrate on routes and stuff that are a little bit easier to read. So we did kind of take that into consideration and stuff as well in these early routes. This is release 2. Release 2 kind of builds off of release 1. We're going to be working in the Chapin area some. We're going to be continuing to work in some of the downtown neighborhoods. We're going to try to get most of the Shandon area complete, a little bit of area down in the southeast, and a little bit of area just north of town as well. The areas, the grayed out are what's been in release, the slow start in release 1, and the colored ones, the dots are release 2. We just kind of keep on building and building on those areas and stuff until we get complete neighborhoods completed. And you should have a list of neighborhoods that we're working in your packet and stuff as well.
And the website, if they go to the website, it has the whole deployment on there.
It has what's been scheduled today, so it has the slow start, release 1, and release 2. So if you go to the website and you look up your address, if you're in release 1 or release 2, it'll tell you the date, the week that you're scheduled for upgrade. If you have not yet, like I haven't, it would say you haven't been scheduled yet, check back later. So most people would be getting a check back later because there's only about 25,000.
That's been working great, by the way.
Oh, excellent. Our GIS folks really stepped up and really helped us tremendously on that and stuff. We're really proud of that. So we've been tracking some key performance indicators. These are some initial things and stuff that we just want to kind of keep track of. We think some of these things, we'll be able to see some good metrics on them over time. We're not going to see huge metrics changes on them anytime really soon. So you've got the monthly total through the end of July. We had done about 2,300 total. The contractor done about 2,300 total install, 2,900 installs. We currently have in the system about 2,600 or so. So they're moving along. You can see the city's done about 67 installs. The city's done a little bit more installs since then as well.
We're putting forces out there to do metering too.
Describe those instances. Yeah, so there could be a wide variety of issues and stuff. Some of them, the contractor's initially going out and surveying them, and they're coming back with, hey, this has this issue, this has this issue. We've decided to take back some of those meter installs that have issues and stuff, because we just feel like we could do them more efficiently than they could. We haven't taken back a whole lot. They've asked for some more information on some things and stuff, but I know there was one that was pretty close to a structure, and we just decided to take it on to make the install.
So do we get credit back?
We do. We don't pay for any of the labor, all that. And we're keeping track of all that.
Jason, where there are places where infrastructure work, water work is being done,
Mm-hmm.
are those new meters placed in that new system, particularly Booker, Washington?
No.
So
This project is separate from that. So the Booker Washington upgrades, they're installing new mains, they're installing new service lines, they're tying into the existing infrastructure. I don't know if Booker Washington's been scheduled yet or not, but when it is scheduled, they'll come in and they'll drop the new AMI meter technology in those existing boxes.
Yeah, I was just wondering whether or not while we were doing that, whether or not.
It's different contractors and different skill sets, so that's why we're doing it that way. But we're doing what we normally do on water line replacement projects, which is install a new main and new service line.
Thank you.
So
I know this is focused on the in-city, obviously.
it was in terms of outreach to unincorporated, there are neighborhoods that we're absolutely reaching out to them, whether or not they're in the corporate limits or not. Yeah, that's the list of neighborhoods that we had in our GIS that was part of the council of neighborhoods. So there may be some neighborhoods that are missing off of that list, but. A couple other things to mention. Thank you, Jason. Very, very well done. A couple other things to mention. Jason showed you the overview maps. In your books are more detailed maps that have weekly routes so that they're zoomed in so you can see in your district exactly where we're touching and what week. If that schedule changes, we're updating those maps and sending them to you in our monthly council update. So you'll be getting those each month by email. One will be coming out later this week. The maps may change a little bit, but in essence, the ones that are in those binders are the ones that we should be sticking to that schedule. Tonight, you're going to see two items on the agenda that dovetail nicely into the AMI project. If you remember the last few years, we've still been buying the old analog meters. So we've been funding that and buying those because we didn't have an AMI system in place. This is the first fiscal year we've got the AMI system in place. So the meters that we buy as a city, as a utility, are going to be the new Badger meters. Badger's honored that pricing. So our forces, if we've got a stuck meter, whether it's on the route or not, our forces can go out and replace that with the new AMI meter, and it'll start reading instantly. New subdivisions that are going in, new construction, our crews are installing those meters. So that's on agenda, a batch of meters to last us through the year based on our estimated install. Also, the larger fire line meters are on the agenda tonight as well. Those will be the digital meters too. So that stock that our staff will keep, our warehouse will manage, and our folks will install. With this project, it comes an opportunity to revisit our business practices. So we're doing that. We're touching almost everything as we go through, and it's given us an opportunity to revamp some of those. One of the things that we're excited about is converting from billing in units of 100 cubic feet, which are hard for folks to understand what that really means, to billing in gallons. So we think that's more transparent. Until we get near completion with the AMI meters, all AMI meters are going to read in gallons. We're going to continue billing in units of 100 cubic feet until we've got system penetration. And at that point, we'll do a public education campaign and we'll convert to billing in gallons. But this sets us
So
up.
we bill for usage at that point, or are we still going to give away 100 cubic feet?
The structure will be very similar, so we'll still give away that base unless we opt to, elect vote to change that. The structure would remain the same. The units will change from 700 cubic feet to however many gallons that is commensurate with that structure.
25. 7.5.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So that's the good news. I do have a little bit of not so good news to report to you. As we started getting our invoices in for the materials, the meters themselves and the meter boxes, items that are taxable, we came to the conclusion that taxes were not included in the bid price. We looked through the procurement documents, and sales tax that was specifically mentioned in the documents do not include sales tax in your pricing. None of the respondents included sales tax in their pricing. So sales tax was in the overall budget. That is not in the figure that you have approved so far contractually. So we're going to be coming to you with a contract amendment, not the contractor's fault, totally city's fault. We've addressed that issue, but for us to pay sales tax on the taxable. So you're probably looking at between $2 and $2.5 million of sales tax that will be coming in.
There's no exemption on,
Well, my question would be is if we resell the meter to each household for $1 or whatever, that would exempt us from the sales tax.
Resale, yeah. Very good point, Daniel.
So that was the belief, that's why the sales tax was not included in the sense to determine that sales tax is due on that.
Not if we resell it back end.
So
Get an exemption. I mean, it's no different.
it's only on certain things. We can go back through, and if everyone has questions, we can revisit it one more time. But Jan is not here today, but Jan has already gone through looking at this to make sure that we cannot.
I think we
Jan
ought,
is out there because we initially believed we should be.
I think it'd be worth another look, especially with some of the coded, and it may be worth calling DOR because they're, with coded stuff that's going on.
Yeah, all right, let's go.
So there's that issue that's out there. It's not on your agenda tonight. Potentially it may be coming to you. We also discovered that no contingency was included in the project. Usually a project of this size, we include a certain contingency because we're going to run into things that we didn't foresee. For instance, we're running into some brittle service lines in the older communities. When we get to those, we're going to fix those. And so we need a little bit of contingency in the contract.
You guys talk a bit about projects awarded and completed, but another KPI, I know when we were initially talking about AMI, we were talking about the potential inclusion of more minority businesses, particularly maybe even plumbers and others. Is that something we've also been measuring and making to make sure it's reality?
Yes, sir. That is part of the contract. The contract team, the UMS team that is actually doing the installation, and forgive me, I can't remember off the top of my head the contractors that they are using. Sure. But there's a portion of that work is being done by local contractors.
I want to see that. Local
Yeah.
and
Yes, sir.
So I want to see that.
Okay.
Make that something we measure going forward, and if we're not hitting it on the first round, next year round, we need to get those numbers up, so.
We can add that to our KPI list as well to make sure we're complying with that. Thank you.
Please do.
Yes, sir. So one last thing about AMI project, and Reverend McDowell, your concern, hadn't heard that particular one, but we have heard some concerns, and we believe we may have a customer up here at council tonight to speak. So we wanted to give you a little primer on what some of those concerns are. Frank has been dialoguing with some of our customers, and he wanted to give you a little idea of the feedback that we're getting and what our posture has been on that so far. We are trying to address every one of those as they come to us, so they don't come to you, but we've got a few that have been elevated a bit.
Before you jump ship, on the estimated bills, as I see in the bottom, and I've had a couple of calls about some residents, especially in Shannon, that you replaced the meters for. I guess the first of the month you estimated how much their bill was, and then when you actually, are you start doing the actual reading or no? Are you billing them on the actual usage with the new meters or?
Are you asking if they're gonna get a bill for what the real reading is now after the estimate?
Right.
Has been done?
Thank you for that question, and that is revisiting business practices. If we had been estimating that customer's bill and they are current with the bill that we have been sending them, for whatever reason, when we get to that meter and we pull it out and we see, oh, they owe us for some more water that we haven't billed them for, we're not going to send them a catch-up bill. They're paid up. they pay their estimated bill. We're going to put in the new digital meter and start billing from that point forward.
So the second you put in the digital meters, you start billing according to whatever they use.
Whatever they're used to do. Yes, sir, absolutely. And there'll be no catch-up to that. So one or two got out with a catch-up bill. We've corrected those. Councilwoman Devine, I think you sent us one of those as well.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we're correcting those, and we've corrected that business process moving forward.
Thank you for that, because that goes back to what Ms. Wilson was saying, the ambassadors. I mean, sometimes there's just things that we have to do for goodwill with our customers, so.
We firmly believe as a staff that's the right thing to do. Those customers that pay the bill we send them. So, Frank, would you talk about this particular concern that may present itself this evening, and then we'll have more time for questions and answers. And Frank is our Deputy Director of Utilities, Frank Eskridge, and we're delighted to have him on the team. How many months, Frank?
4.5.
4.5. But he's in the middle of it, I promise.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. We've had, out of the 2,500 or so meters that have been changed out, we've had a handful who have expressed a desire to not have the new meter. One in particular has asked to opt out of the program, and it's my understanding that when this was approved to change out 150,000 accounts, the idea of having customers exercise individual options to opt out was not part of the game plan. So there was some indication that she might be approaching council this week. I reached out to her last week to see if maybe I could answer her questions. So we had a conversation, and she had a number of concerns about the new metering. As it turns out, the primary, I should be talking into that, okay. The primary concern that she had was for the health of herself and her children, because she has the idea that this new metering technology that we're installing could possibly have a negative health effect on her and her family. She has shared some information with me. I've looked into some things. It appears to me that she might be combining some concerns that have cropped up nationwide on a number of different utility issues. There's if you live near a high voltage power line, there's that uneasiness that's out there. If you have a power meter, a lot of electric utilities have converted to AMI. So if you Google AMI, you get information about electric utility meters also. She's concerned that the metering that we install could send current along the service line into the house and create an electromagnetic field that could possibly negatively affect the health of her family. She's also concerned that you have the meter there on the table, the meter chamber, the register, the endpoint. She's concerned that some electricity might get loose from that and present a hazard. She also indicated or asked me, is this going to be accurate? Because she had read somewhere that these electronic AMI meters suddenly goose up, if you will, the readings.
That's what we're installing.
Well, no. In my conversation with her, I explained that the technology that we're installing is really no more complicated than having a cell phone at the meter to send signals back to us. Because right now, and this is part of my explanation, we have to send a human being out in a truck, open the meter box, look at the register, and record the numbers. The concern she had about the accuracy, the brass chamber at the base of the meter, that technology is incredibly accurate. It is incredibly dependable and has been available for decades. I'm talking 60 or 70 years, okay? The water that flows through that precisely measured chamber allows you to know exactly how much water is going through that meter.
Unprecedented transparency and the ability for consumers to control.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, sir. The register records a reading every 15 minutes, and then up to about 4 times a day, the endpoint transmits that information through the cellular telephone network. So that's what you have going on. Now,
this technology has exploded over the last 25 years, and even the World Health Organization has looked into what the effects are. Based on my brief, because she's the one that kind of pointed me to the World Health Organization. Based on my review of what she has presented to me, I'm confident that there are no negative health effects that come from this technology. The battery in this meter is set up to last 20 years. The transmissions cannot eat up a lot of power. But that battery's not going to last 20 years, okay? Now, every time I would share something, I would be invited to provide proof, okay? Because just me saying it wasn't going to settle the question. So I'm trying to gather some information for her along those lines. But I tried to reassure her that we're not sending electrical currents along the service line. The meter is accurate, and it's you know, I've got a cell phone in each pocket, and I use them all day long. The communication from this meter is the equivalent of one cell phone a call a day, that when you add up all four, is still less than a minute. It's measured in seconds. So, anyway, she had other concerns, but I think this is the one that motivates her. As any mother would be motivated for the health of their children. So that's a little bit of, Clint, is there any part of this that you need me to expand on, or any questions?
I think that's good. I want y'all to be aware of that concern that may be voiced tonight or at some point in the future, and others may share that concern, but
I haven't heard that personally from anybody.
email.
Yeah, but that's what he's talking about, the same person.
We would never do anything to harm our customers. We're doing this significant investments to help our customers, to help us provide better customer service. So what we'll do is look at her concerns, try to address those. We're also discussing a policy of when we may install those meters for those customers that do have concerns, or what that potential might mean.
So you'll have to charge them a service fee to do that.
That is one option, yes, sir.
I mean, we can't run a truck out just for one customer.
There won't be a return on the investment for our customer base if we allow 1,000 customers to opt out and continue with. That wouldn't make sense for us as a utility or for our customer base. So, but again, there are options for, you know, a private well, and those sorts of things too. So we're looking at that and trying to figure out how to unpack those. This is not that uncommon to get the occasional opt-out request. So
I guess, you know, in her case, I guess really the question is I'm assuming that she has an AMI meter for SCANA or Dominion.
We're running that to ground right now, sir, to see what type of.
The exposure to these radio waves from a television set or a computer screen or a cell phone that you hold up next to your head far exceeds anything that we have going on with this meter. I also assured her there are steps that have been taken. This information is private and secure. Our customer account information is proprietary. It's not to be shared with anybody but the customer. So we've discussed those things, but I have a feeling we'll continue to discuss those things.
I mean, it sounds like y'all are doing everything you can. I think we got to be real careful about an opt-out program, because I think it's just going to create a bigger problem than it is ever going to resolve.
Vaccination program, problem, we can't have that.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to go into a little more depth right now, and then, you know, you hear about it later this evening. We won't spend this much time this evening. She would be able to speak in the, you know, public comment period.
Didn't want to catch y'all blindsided. So we do have a little more information to present. We're going to pick up the pace considerably because you're familiar with our stormwater program and our Clean Water 2020 program, so we're going to try to ramp it up. We did want to spend some time on AMI and answer the questions that you have, but thank you for the opportunity to do that for our customers. Thank you, sir. Thanks for talk about our stormwater programs.
Thank you, Clint. Good afternoon. How's everybody doing? Just gonna. Go out here again. So sent you an update on that. So we're moving forward with those 3 last easements. Penn Branch, Yorkshire, and Gills Creek to the east to District 4. We've got Shannon and Devil's Ditch we're working on in District 3. And to the west, we've been working on the MLK Park and the Rocky Branch project. Up to date, we have already awarded 11 contracts. Program management and our projects.
You're causing her computer to vibrate.
I like talking to the microphone.
Danielle, can you go back to that slide real quickly?
Yes, sir.
Just so the way I read that, we have contracts of 7.5, but the consultants cost us 3.8, 50% of the cost.
That's correct. So right now we have the 9.7 includes the MLK and Wallace Street, some of the construction projects that are already complete that we use some of the stormwater funding for. So we've spent
That
about.
percentage change is it
It'll
grows?
continue to change because right now we have a lot of projects in their feasibility and construction document phase. So we haven't spent the construction money that we need to spend once we get all that information back.
Consultants, all soft costs, engineers, and the whole 9 yards, is that what
That's correct. So all of our.
Yes, sir. And I think it's important to note, 7 million plus the 3.8, 7.5 plus the 3.8 is the total spent of that 3.8. So it's not half of 7.5. It's 3.8 out of 11 and change is what we spent. We are consultant heavy right now because of design.
That's still 30%.
Right.
But we're in design and the construction spend is to come, but we're heavy in the design and evaluation phase.
Later on, would you look at that split looking like, would you say?
So I think we'd be down more 10% consultant
Right.
and 90%.
We need to get it to 5. The consultants are making way too much money on this 20.
Then I probably shouldn't tell you we have 2.5 that we spent today with consultants, just to give you an idea. But the contracts awarded are 3.8. So part of the program management team is, we have that contract on the agenda tonight with Wolpert, and they have been helping us with condition assessments throughout the city. They've been evaluating the pipes and the system, deciding what needs to be replaced, helping us with a criticality analysis and developing projects throughout the city that need to be addressed. We're very excited about our Rocky Branch kickoff meeting we had last week. ESP was awarded. Thank you for approving that. I believe that was a couple of council meetings ago. This is the project that will take us from Granger Bay down through 5 Points, Maxi Gregg, Whaley, Main, and Assembly Street. These are some of those points that everyone is very interested in. We do have another firm that's working on stream restoration in concert, and we've been working with Rocky Branch Watershed Group as well as USC because they have a lot of plans in this area as well. Shannon's meeting was May 9th, so we had a great turnout for that project. We met with the consultant last week. They already have some preliminary results on the west watershed. They've looked at the idea of pocket parks and potentially purchasing homes. However, there was not a large impact from doing that. So what they have determined that really will make an impact is having a bypass system starting at Maple and Monroe, coming down to Rosewood. So they're kind of starting to zoom in on that. But the east side is a good bit bigger, so they're starting to work through those now. We expect to have those results within the next couple of months. Upcoming contracts, tonight you'll see the $3 million multi-year contract with Wolpert that'll round out their program management. They're also, of course, helping us with criticality and analysis of our system. Queen Street Design Services, this area is in Old Shandon above MLK Park that traditionally has flooding issues. Yorkshire feasibility, that's the public safety issue with Dr. Burns. That will be coming up in the next council meeting. The Gills Creek debris removal construction contract should be coming up September 17th before y'all. And then the Harlem Heights Storm Project, that's a project that's shovel ready. We are finishing up the last 3 easements now. So we're hoping within the next 30 days to bring that before y'all, or to procurement.
On the Gills Creek debris removal, I know you said the contract is coming up. When do you start actual work?
So September 17th, the contract will be before y'all. So then, once we have the authorization and the contracts signed, we'll be able to get them notice to proceed out there.
Right away.
Yes, for the work in the city limits, and then there's some issues that we're working through. Mr. Rickman's been helping us with the annexation piece as well. Oh, and tonight I'll be talking about our APWA award that we received for Project of the Year. I'll be giving a little bit more information, but MLK, we're very proud of that project. There's areas that are chronically wet that we created, wetland and storage and water quality, and we have been recognized for it, so I'm very excited about it.
I hope we're going to replicate that in Maxie Gregg.
We could definitely look at that, absolutely.
Should have done it.
100 years ago.
And with that, I'm going to tag team to Joey. Any questions?
Not a question, just a request. Ms. Wilson, I'm getting, periodically I get questions when people want to know about, Clean Water 2020, EPA. Of course, inevitably around this time with election time, people have a lot of misinformation out there. And I just think it might be useful if we get staff to maybe go on, get PR to tape just a kind of in layman's terms, where are we with our improvements, everything, and then we'll be able to send that out on social media and different avenues, just so people have the facts on where we are, where we are with EPA, where we are on the improvements and the ultimate benefits long-term for our city.
So we have a very capable public information officer, Robert Andy, who is assigned to Columbia Water. And I think they're already doing some of that. It's in the works, so we can get some feedback from you all on maybe channels to push it out even further, Ms. Devine. I know you're very tuned in on some ways to do that, so.
Yes, I need to give Mr. Rickman a class since he sings.
Oh, no,
My social media, she's praising me for how I use social media, so it's like, yeah, I need
Look, we all can't be Tamika. The possibilities are endless, they're not all in our favor.
I'm not giving it to the council, but as far as her feedback to staff, as far as some ways that we can share it in the community more widely, I think it's a great idea.
Just send us a sheet.
Don't be afraid. I'm up for election this year. But don't be afraid to actually yield to staff for accurate answers, as opposed to giving answers that inaccurate or what have you. So you got capable staff who are usually pretty available. I have all your cell phones numbers. I'll get them. But about 6 times a week, I'll get them on a moment's notice. People have questions. Let's give them good, solid answers they can rely on, and not create the sense of despair that's out there sometimes.
And there's a lot of that going on.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I think it's a great point about the social media as well, and so we'll try to do a snippet about AMI, about our progress on the stormwater, and also where we are with the EPA consent decree and the Clean Water 2020 program. Jody is going to give us that snapshot in about 2 minutes or less of where we are with the consent decree. We're going to defer the slide deck and give you just a real quick snapshot of where we are with the consent decree and how the program is helping us.
Okay, so I'm going to move quick here and provide an update on the overall progress, where we are with our consent decree to date. Talk about an SSO update. We added water system improvements to our Clean Water 2020 program a couple of years ago, so I just want to give an update on that. And our infrastructure rehabilitation report, which is our next large deliverable to EPA. Brian's going to actually come up and give an update on that. So where we are with EPA, with our consent decree today, is we have, I think there's about 19 deliverables that we have to provide to EPA. We have 4 remaining. And that sounds really good, because it is really good. We're up to date and where we need to be and on schedule, but that doesn't mean we're that far into the consent decree. The last 4 deliverables, especially the infrastructure rehabilitation report, which Brian's going to report on here shortly, this is the guts of the program. This is where we say, EPA, this is what we found, these are the projects we're going to do, and here's our schedule to do that. So I'm going to let Brian talk about that, but knowing where we are today and we're on track, and what we've got left to do, we estimate probably 2028 is when we'll begin negotiating out of the consent decree. It could come sooner, could come later, depends on what we find, but that's where we think we are today, and that's where we think we're headed. So here's a list of the deliverables. Y'all seen this. Every time we give an update, we try to provide this to you. These are all the major deliverables. This is what's remaining is not grayed out. The infrastructure rehabilitation report is the next large deliverable that is due this November, and I'll let Brian cover that. But where we are today, this is kind of a roadmap, a skeleton of the infrastructure portion of the CD. So we've told the EPA how we're going to map it, how we're going to lay out, do a condition assessment of our system, and the next deliverable is this is what we found and this is what we're going to rehabilitate, and here's the schedule to do that. This is the spend that to date. You remember early on we had to give EPA an estimate of what we thought it was going to be dollar-wise spend for the consent decree. That's where we came up with the $750 million. That's where you hear that a lot. To date, council has approved about 270 of that, and we feel like we're on track. There's some that we may spend a little bit more, some we may spend a little less, but we're fairly on track with that estimate to date.
And that includes the 310 we're coming up tonight, or no?
The
310 million.
yeah, that includes. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. The bond issue is coming tonight, and Jeff can speak in great detail about that. But it includes the CIP from last year and this year, and that would be what's spent approved to date. Some of that is forward-looking. Some of that 310 is forward-looking, and some of it's refunding previous bond issues as well. So last year's CIP.
What I'm saying is 270 million plus the 310 million we're going to approve tonight.
That's water and sewer, Councilman, but also some of that was refunding opportunities from previous bond issues.
Okay, so these bar charts kind of represent where we are today with our consultant spending. Not to go into any detail, when we started this program, one of the first things was suggested we do is we go visit a similar sized utility that's in a similar state that we are, and just talk to them about how. And the first question we got from that utility manager was, "Who's your program manager?" They tried to do it without a program manager, and they immediately fell behind and had issues. So
their ex-director went to go work for the program. Yeah.
could be. I don't know that to be the case, but so this is kind of a last 4-year look back on the expenditures with the program management team, which is CDM, but also there's a number of consultants that work with CDM to help us with the program. So you can see by this chart, we're starting to ramp down, and with that, we're starting to build staff internally, bring these services in internally, and that's the goal from day one. Was we knew we had to have an extension staff, which is what these consultants are, but as we move through the program, that will ramp down. So the green portion of the chart is the wastewater. The blue is the water. So we said all along that we were going to build these programs on the wastewater side, and then we're going to start to roll them over to the water side. The mapping program is an example of that, and there's a project on and I'll talk about that in a minute. But so we started to build that into the program where we're improving. As we did on the wastewater side, we're now doing that on the water side. So you can see we're growing that a little bit within the program as well. So to give a quick update on our sanitary sewer overflows, we overall trend is down. When you look at the number of overflows, we've kind of plateaued, and that's because we've hit we've hit a lot of the low-hanging fruit, so to speak. Early on, it was the fats, oil, and grease, the FOG program. We did a great campaign on improving how we control FOG within our wastewater system, and we saw a great decrease in SSOs as a result of that. We're doing a lot of these big projects. Lake Catherine, this is a picture here of the Lake Catherine project. Lake Catherine, Crane Creek, these Rocky Branch, these are some big dollar sewer projects that we have to do to improve our sewer system, but as a result of that, the reoccurring SSOs, high volume SSOs, we're eliminating those. So that's why we see the turn down in in SSO volume. And this is what the bar chart here represents. You can see back in 15-16, we had some high volumes. We finished the Crane Creek project, which resulted in removing a lot of that volume. And we've continued to do these projects. So you can see in 17, we greatly reduced the volume. In 18, we had a little bit of a hiccup at our wastewater plant, and that's what's shown in red there. And we show it in red because that was all one event. Last December, you remember, we had the heavy rain. We were taking on a lot of water at Metro. So we're showing it as red because it was actually partially treated sewage, but it did not discharge properly. So we have to show it as an SSO. So that's what that is. And then the blue chart, so this is where we are today. So you can see we trended down with the volume, and we continue to trend down. And that's a result of the programs, the Fats on Grease program, but also the large projects that we've completed, that we still have yet to complete. So as we continue to do these projects, this volume will continue to decrease, but also the count will continue to decrease as we continue to do inspection, we continue to do the rehabilitation of the smaller lines, so to speak. And that's when we start to eliminate where we plateaued in the count. So this will continue to decrease as we continue through the program, and ultimately we'll begin to negotiate out. So water system mapping improvements. We built this great system on the wastewater side to improve our mapping, to improve our maintenance management system. Ultimately, in doing that, we've done called City Works Mobile. As a result of that, we're improving our customer service, how quickly we can respond, how quickly we can notify customers of what we do. So we're doing that on the water side. In a couple of weeks, we'll have a water project come to you to help map our water assets in the system, similar to we did our sewer. So the successes we've completed. I first have to point out that we couldn't do what we do without council's approval, support, without our great management and leadership team, but also our staff. Our staff has really done really well in helping us to get to where we are with the program. In saying that, the consultant team, the CDM team, and the consultants that work with them, they're really an extension of staff, and that's truly we sit next to them, they sit next to us in the office space. So without that, we couldn't have done this, couldn't be where we are today. So wanted to point that out. We remain on schedule, and we really, in doing all that we've done, we built a great foundation for Columbia Water, and we're really on track to being best in class in what we do. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brian and let him talk about the infrastructure rehabilitation report.
He does want to gloss over 95% reduction in SSO. That's a big thing.
Yes, sir.
That's a big deal and worthy of a lot of acclaim. This can continue on that trend line. We put systems in place to make sure it happened last December. It doesn't happen again. We catch it quicker. We good to go there?
Yes, sir, we did. We actually, not to go into great detail of it, but we had a overflow within our holding basin at Metro, which it goes through the initial treatment process. Then when we have heavy flows, it goes in the holding basin if we can't run it through the system. When it was built, it was built to directly release the stormwater. So we had actually a release that released it to the stormwater system. We have eliminated that, and we've actually increased the volume in our holding basin as a result of that. So we have fixed that, yes, sir.
That's big deal, guys. Congratulations.
Whoa, Joey, I got a question. I know y'all are working on the rehab and all of that. So this past week, I had to call Clint about an issue. What is our mechanism for falling back when we're doing this? So we're doing sewer upgrades in neighborhoods, and at this location, we had the subcontractor wanting to come out there and dig up all these bushes in one yard and place the clean out in the middle of the landing on another property, which is going to cost, Clint explained, this is one price, so, whatever they do, they have to absorb it, but they're doing things that are going to cause us so much headaches with residents. And so my question is around that is, who's following up? Who's the construction management that's making sure that the contacts and the conversations with our residents thought through. I mean, on having somebody come out, I think Paul, is that right? Philip, excuse me. Philip came out, and, Philip's like, well, we could do it here or here by taking 10 minutes to figure it all out so it was less impactful, which long-term would have been less headache for all of us and probably cost us more because we would end up fixing everything. So, I guess in all of this work, I mean, how are we following up on that? Because my fear is that we're spending more money than we need to on these type of issues. I don't know that for a fact. I'm just assuming based on my personal experience.
So we do, as a part of the program, we have project managers for every project. We also internally, we have hired, or we are in the process of hiring a project manager for those type projects, for internal rehabilitation projects, and to manage those things. It's a part of that process to figure these type things out and to work with the customers to make sure that we're doing things that are at least disruptive to the customer as possible. A clean out is, we're not replacing services, so we're installing clean outs where the service is today. So that may not, unfortunately, these older neighborhoods, there's not a clean out at the property line. And that's one thing we're correcting, is we're installing clean outs. And it's where the existing service line is, so that may not be conducive to the customer's front yard or how their bushes and so forth. So we do try to fix those as we find them. But the contractor, I mean, they're installing it where the service line is today. So I don't know if that addresses that issue or not. But
well, it does, because the service line could be in the curb in the street. It could be behind that bush. It could be behind that landing. There was no reason to go spray paint somebody's landing and say, I'm going to tear this up.
Right.
And so had they not called, or the other lady called about all the bushes, we would have ended up with a big mess. And I guess I'm trying to figure out, how do we prevent that from happening? And is there, somebody going behind going, wait a minute, guys?
It's a great point. And so we learned a little bit from that instance, and I think they had a good interaction. But again, they had to call, and we had to intercede. I think as the contractors and subcontractors, as we continue educating them on what's proper and what's improper, I think we're learning too to have our construction management and our project management team go behind them and check off on each of these before we go, cutting loose and digging up yards. Because everyone, when you start dealing a well-established yard, it's a case-by-case basis. We're hearing that on AMI, we're seeing that on clean-out replacements. And so we've got to give that a little bit of individualized attention and pay close attention to that. Even though we say we're going to restore it back like it was.
Well, the problem too is you got to remember, you're coming behind AT&T and the 5G, who just went through and had a lot of calls, to say the least.
So Brian is going to talk very quickly about this infrastructure rehabilitation report, which is one of these EPA deliverables. It's very, very important, so I wanted him to speak to that just really briefly and bring you up to speed on what we're committing to. Thank you, Brian.
Absolutely. I'll try to do very quickly to keep y'all on schedule. I know y'all got a lot to talk about tonight. So in your packet, you should see a page that looks like this. We call this one of the one-pagers. Joey referenced the 17 or 19 program submittals we do to EPA that talks about how we're going to implement the different portions of the consent decree. EPA deemed 8 of those important enough to require a 30-day public comment period before we submit it to the EPA. Because typically we put these out for public comment, get that, make adjustments necessary, send it into EPA. If EPA blesses it, we then spend a lot of that time between now and 2028 implementing these different programs. And so this is one of those. This is the infrastructure rehab report. So I'm going to pull back up that infrastructure roadmap that Joey talked about a little bit just a little while ago. So again, we're talking about this document right here, which is in terms of the major system. I'll talk about that in a little while. Last time I was here, I was talking about the infrastructure rehab program, which required public comment, and it said, here's how we're going to make rehab decisions based on what we find. Okay, so that was the last time I'll see with the one-pager. And we've been spending a lot of time doing the major CSAPs. So that's condition assessment on your largest pipes. So when I was here about a year and a half ago showing you pictures and videos of inside of pipes, and y'all didn't fall asleep, which I very much appreciate, that was us figuring out what shape is our stuff in. Well, now, this is a huge milestone. We're here today saying, here's what we told EPA we were going to rehab based on what we found. We now know what we found, and then we put that together and actually tell EPA, well, here's what we need to do. So whenever we would have introduced to you the program at the very beginning, back when we signed it with EPA in 2014, this is one of the top 3 or 4 milestones I would have talked about at that meeting. So this is a big deal today, okay? I'll talk to you about the group of projects here in a second, but what's important is, as we say, here's what we need to rehab, we're making sure the pipes are big enough too. The hydraulic model is far enough along that we're sure we're not going in there rehabbing, say, 30-inch diameter pipe, only to find out 2 years later it needs to be a 42 and we've got to go in and put it in a new pipe. So that is baked in. I know that would be probably a question you would have. So, and then once we submit these list of projects, we're going to have a certain timeline to be able to get that done. So that 2028 Joey talked about, Group 3 projects, once this is approved by EPA, we get 7 years to complete that. So that's kind of one of the ways that 2028 is calculated, okay? Now, in about 3 more years, I'll be here talking about the supplemental IRR, which is very similar. It's just for your smaller diameter pipe. All right, one thing that's really important to understand about this, the one-pager, again, this is in case you get a phone call from a constituent or something, you kind of understand what this is this is for your largest pipes. So 15-inch diameter, so think of a little bit bigger than a dinner plate, 15-inch diameter up to 60-inch, your largest pipes out in the collection system today. It's about 10.5% of your system, but repairing a foot of 60-inch pipe costs a lot more than repairing a section of 8-inch. And so that 12 to 18-inch, that's that supplemental, the smaller stuff. You can think of it in terms of interstates versus a neighborhood road. This is about the interstates, in a way, if you want to think of it in terms of transportation. And again, we're turning in the actual list of projects. If you want to see what's required in the IRR and what's contained in that document that's going out for public comment, it's detailed here in the one-pager. It's a lot of technical information. It's the condition of the pipes. It's the sources of inflow and infiltration, so how rainwater and groundwater gets in there. There's a ton of geeky stuff in there. I'd love to tell you about it. The part you really care about is the projects. What are we committing to with EPA? Okay, that's really what's going to matter. And so the most important part is that list of prioritized rehab projects. So we prioritize the projects we're promising to the EPA in group 1, 2, or 3, and that's based on the SSO potential. So we want to make sure we're attacking the projects that are most likely to cause SSOs first, and those that are less likely, they go into the group 3. Okay. Now, when something is in group 1, 2, or 3, we have very important tight timelines, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, okay? With EPA, if there's a project in one of those groups, if it is not done within time, you get fined for it, okay? You always hear about cities getting fined by EPA. This is one of the major ways they get fined. If a project is not done in time, the EPA can fine $2,500 per day per project. So a big thing that Joey and Clint are going to be spending the next 7 years doing is looking over my shoulder, making sure that stuff's staying on schedule, right? We don't want to have projects get into that situation. So $2,500 per day per project. So that's a very big deal. We are not going to have that, I'll promise you that. Those guys won't let me let that happen. So that's a big part of what we do is make sure that the projects stay on schedule and everything's moving. So project and program controls is a huge effort to that. So we've actually done projects with liquidated damages to be able to cover that if they go late, and that's something we'll consider going forward. So that's very important. The other thing I want to make sure you understand is of that group 1, 2, and 3 projects, this list, this commitment that we have to EPA that is enforceable in federal court, we estimate what the city is committing to be approximately $50 million. Okay. The good news is that is within the estimate that we had, so that $750 million estimate that Joey showed earlier, this fits within that, so that's good news. There's always a risk on a consent decree that you're going to find this system in a much worse condition than you estimated it to be. What's good here is that our estimate contains what we actually are committing to with EPA, so I think that's very important. I'll also mention that these projects are very large and very complex. Trying to rehab a 60-inch pipe is a very special type of construction. And so the packages that come out of this work requirement with EPA are going to be large and technical. Okay, I think that's very important to understand. The local contracting opportunities for that kind of work likely will be met through the Office of Business Opportunities programs. I think later when we're in that supplemental IRR and we're doing that 8 to 12 inch work, there's going to be a lot more opportunities for local contractors to be primes, but we're likely looking at specialty firms or unique firms to be able to do these large, very complex projects. So, any questions on that? It should be going out for public comment in about 2 or 3 days, so you should see it.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate that. So thank you all for your time and attention. I just wanted to mention 3 other things that I think are really important. We're continuing to invest in our staff through our apprenticeship programs. Primarily, we're rolling out a water distribution apprenticeship program. We have them for water treatment, wastewater treatment, and wastewater collection. Water distribution was the last piece of our operating organization, Joey's structure, to add that apprenticeship program. But that gives a nice training for our staff so that they can be better employees, but it also gives them career advancement opportunities within our organization. So we're really excited about that. It's been a very collaborative effort. The program, Brian and his team have helped us with that. HR has been great working with us and putting that program together. So we're taking lessons learned from the other programs and making each one of those programs better. You do have on your agenda tonight a related item, which is the feasibility study for a solar farm, the Metro Wastewater Treatment Plant. So that's the feasibility study and optional design services. So we've gone through a procurement process for that. So you'll see that on your agenda this evening. Final thing I wanted to mention. Yes, sir.
On that, so just so I understand, because this has been a painstaking process to get here. After you've gotten the design, or is your plan to go out to bid?
No, sir. The contract is structured so that we'll do the feasibility study first. Those results are good. We brief y'all. If everybody wants to proceed, we'll go into design services, and then we go into contract negotiation for installation services if we can agree upon a price for that. So it is a one. That's not on your agenda to move that. We'll come to you again because that'll be a much larger dollar amount.
We may want to think about that.
Every step of the way, there is an off-ramp if we can't reach agreement with the folks that we're contracting with. So feasibility study is the first step to see what that return on investment is. But again, exciting project for us as a city and utility.
I think we need to probably do a little hand-holding on that to make sure that they're evaluating what we want to be evaluated, not what's convenient for them.
We have tailored their scope to what we want. And that took a little bit of an effort, but our team did a good job with that. I also wanted to mention something Councilman Badura brought up 2 meetings ago, I believe, notification to our customers. And I think y'all are familiar with, not this past weekend, weekend before, we had a little bit of discolored water issue. And the ability to push out notifications to our customers would have been helpful during those types of events. But also geolocating, when we have a water advisory, if a contractor hits our water line and we need to issue a water advisory for 3 blocks, being able to geolocate that and push that message to those customers. We have that ability through the Everbridge system or reverse 911 system right now, but our database is very poorly populated. So we met the other day, Councilman, after you and I had met, we met with our staff and our IT folks. We're going to take our customer database, which resides in the Banner software, and populate Everbridge with that, with the existing customer contacts. Problem there is that we've got a lot of older home phone numbers that may or may not still be active, but it gives us an opportunity to reach out to those folks to make an outbound call.
Just send a message on Nextdoor, it'll be
seconds. We push those out for those that follow us on the different social media platforms as well. But we're also going to have a customer campaign to try to educate our customers and get them to update their information in Banner so that we can get their cell numbers and do push notifications by text message. But I think every opportunity, everything that happens is an opportunity to learn and get better. And so I think thank you for challenging us to get better in that way. So that's something that we're excited about. We're going to have that database transfer over within the next 2 weeks. And so you'll start seeing a lot more of those geolocated push notifications.
I tell you, the other thing that I hear a lot is nobody can get through the call center or the help center at the water department for any reason, whether to register a complaint, whether I mean, there's a lot more of that, more and more, especially after that Saturday morning. Is there any way or any near future resolution for that, or we have a rollover, maybe calls from one center to another, or anything like that?
Yes, sir. We're looking at all those customer care and call center and unpacking that and looking at our business processes. Also trying to push people to use our My Columbia SC app so they can notify us of a problem and generates a work order and goes straight to the work crews, kind of eliminates the middleman. But we're most definitely looking at it, more to come about what we're doing with our call center. Yes, ma'am. So I think everybody knows that Angela Adams has been our customer care administrator for almost 17 years and done a really good job for us. Angie knows our business processes better than most, I'll say, if not anybody within the city. So she's really strong. I keep a list, I like to refer to it as Angie's List. And there are these initiatives. Some of you are familiar with that extra digit that's not printed on the payment notification, right?
The recommended digit.
That's been on our list for I don't know, over a year. Within the next 3 weeks, that issue is going to be taken care of. Angie's been working on that for me. Angie's also trying to manage a call center and staff and field customer care staff. And it's really, so as we looked at that as managers, Ms. Wilson and I worked on this, we're going to reassign Angie and have her handle some of those special projects for us. We're going to bring in a new customer care administrator that can focus on particularly minimizing those call times and hold volumes. And so that'll allow Angie to focus on addressing the root cause of the fires that we continually stamp out. And so we think that's going to be really positive for us. We're not adding a position to our organization. We're reclassifying an existing position and reassigning duties. So that customer care administrator will be posted probably within the next 2 weeks. And so we'll be seeking some outside.
She has to keep her 3306 number. It's the only number of the staff I've ever memorized.
Yes, sir, she does. And I have her cell number memorized too. So anyway, exciting things for her and exciting times ahead for customer care as well. So thank y'all for your support. If you do have any more questions, we'll try to answer those.
Great,
Thank you.
thanks, everybody. Dan, Thomas and I, executive session, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to go into executive session for receipt of legal advice related to matters covered by attorney-client privilege pursuant to 30-4-782, Chapter 14, add extreme risk protection orders, hate, intimidation, gun-free school zones, Columbia Canal, Columbia Urban League, discussion of matters related to proposed location or expansion of services, encourage location or expansion of industries or other business pursuant to 78.2 card development incentives, discussion of negotiation and proposed contractual arrangement pursuant to 78.2 1601 Assembly Street Municipal Complex, discussion of the employment of an employee pursuant to 70A1 Municipal Court Judges, and Item 4, which is under receipt of legal advice, we want to add roads property.
Aye. Yes.
Aye.
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 I just read what they put.
I'm sorry, didn't we